That's her mom.
Clara Morgan pressed her forehead against the frozen window of the stagecoach and let the tears fall where no one could see them. 22 years old, and everything she'd ever loved was buried in a Boston cemetery. The letter in her pocket felt heavier than her single bag. Position available: widower with 3 children. Cedar Creek, Colorado Territory. Immediate departure required. She wasn't going to a new life. She was being sent away like damaged goods, and she knew it. What she didn't know was that the broken man waiting at the end of this road would teach her what love really meant. If you want to follow Clara's journey to the very end, subscribe to our channel and leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels.
Machatam.
The stagecoach lurched to a stop, and Clara Morgan's heart lurched with it. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, ashamed of the tears she'd let fall during the last stretch of road. Crying wouldn't change anything. It never had. "Cedar Creek," the driver called out, his voice muffled by the wind. "End of the line, miss." Clara gathered her bag and stepped down into the snow. The cold hit her like a slap, sharp and unforgiving. She pulled her thin coat tighter, knowing it wouldn't be enough for a Colorado winter. "You Clara Morgan?" She turned. A man stood beside a wagon, his hat pulled low against the wind. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe late 20s, with the same dark hair and broad shoulders the letter had mentioned. But his eyes were wrong. Too warm, too curious. "I am." "Jake Weston." He tipped his hat. "Sam's brother. He couldn't come himself. The little one's got a fever." Clara's stomach tightened. The youngest rose. Jake's eyebrows rose. "You know their names?" "Mrs. Patterson's letter mentioned them, Emma Thomas and Rose." "Tommy," Jake corrected. "He goes by Tommy, hates Thomas, says it sounds like a preacher's name." Clara almost smiled. Almost. Jake grabbed her bag before she could protest and tossed it into the wagon. "Come on, it's a good hour's ride and the temperature's dropping fast." She climbed up beside him, and the wagon began to move. The town of Cedar Creek disappeared behind them, nothing more than a cluster of buildings huddled against the snow. "So," Jake said after a long silence. "Boston, huh?" "Yes. Long way from home." Clara watched the white landscape stretch endlessly before them. "I don't have a home anymore." Jake glanced at her, something shifting in his expression. He didn't ask more questions. The Weston Ranch appeared slowly emerging from the snow like a ghost. Clara saw the barn, first solid and well-maintained, then the fences, then the house. 2 stories. A wide porch, smoke rising from the chimney. It looked warm. It looked like everything she'd lost. "Sam built most of it himself," Jake said, pulling the wagon to a stop. "After the war, he came out here with nothing but a mule and a dream. Built this place from the ground up." "And his wife?" Jake's jaw tightened. "Margaret. She died 2 years ago. Childbirth. The baby didn't make it either." Clara closed her eyes briefly. 4 graves then, not 3. "Sam's not the same," Jake continued quietly. "None of them are. Emma won't talk to strangers. Tommy runs off every chance he gets. And Rose." He paused. "Rose hasn't spoken more than a handful of words since her mama died." "She doesn't speak." "She can, she just chooses not to. Doc says it's grief. Sam says it's his fault. I say it's a wound that hasn't healed yet." The front door opened and a man stepped onto the porch. Clara's breath caught. He was tall, taller than Jake, with shoulders that looked like they'd been built for carrying the weight of the world. His face was weathered, lined in ways that had nothing to do with age, and everything to do with loss. Dark hair touched with gray at the temples. A beard that looked like it hadn't been trimmed in weeks. But his eyes. His eyes were the color of winter itself, pale and blue, and utterly empty. "Mr. Weston," Clara said, climbing down from the wagon. "Miss Morgan." His voice was low, rough, like he hadn't used it much lately. "You made it." "I did." He didn't move to help her, didn't offer to take her bag. He just stood there watching her with those hollow eyes. "The children are inside," he said finally. "Emma's watching Rose. Tommy's somewhere he shouldn't be." The fever Jake mentioned Rose was sick. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, that she'd remembered. "Broke this morning. She's tired, but she'll live." "I'm glad." He studied her for a long moment. Clara felt the weight of his gaze, felt him measuring her against whatever expectations he'd built in his mind. "You're younger than I expected," he said. "I'm 22. And you've cared for children before?" "I raised my younger cousins after my aunt fell ill. I know how to cook, clean men's clothes, and manage a household. I'm a hard worker, Mr. Weston. I won't give you any trouble." His jaw tightened at that last word. Trouble. Like she was something to be managed. "Come inside," he said. "You'll freeze out here." The warmth of the house hit Clara like an embrace. She stood in the doorway for a moment, letting it seep into her bones, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. The front room was simple, but clean. A fireplace crackled against the far wall. A worn sofa faced it, flanked by two chairs that didn't match. A wooden table sat near the kitchen set for four. And there, standing near the stairs, were two of the children. The older one, Emma, had her mother's dark hair and her father's guarded expression. 11 years old, but she held herself like someone much older. Her arms were crossed, her chin lifted in defiance. The younger one, Rose, stood half-hidden behind her sister. She was small for 5, with wide brown eyes and a doll clutched against her chest. The doll was missing an arm. "Emma Rose," Sam said. "This is Miss Morgan. She'll be staying with us." Emma's eyes narrowed. "For how long?" "As long as she's needed." "We don't need anyone." "Emma." "We don't." The girl's voice cracked. "We were fine before. We'll be fine without some stranger coming in and pretending to be—" "That's enough!" Sam's voice cut through the room like a blade. Emma fell silent, but her eyes burned with resentment. Clara stepped forward slowly, careful not to crowd either child. She lowered herself to one knee, bringing herself to Rose's eye level. "Hello, Rose," she said softly. "That's a beautiful doll. Does she have a name?" Rose stared at her unblinking. She didn't answer. "She doesn't talk," Emma said sharply. "Not to anyone, so don't bother trying." Clara kept her eyes on Rose. "That's all right. She doesn't have to talk. Sometimes the quietest people have the most to say. They're just waiting for someone who knows how to listen." Something shifted in Rose's expression. It wasn't much, just a flicker, but Clara saw it. "Your room's upstairs," Sam said, breaking the moment. "Second door on the right. Emma will show you." "I'd rather not," Emma said. "Emma." "Fine." The girl turned on her heel and stalked toward the stairs. "Come on, then." Clara rose and followed her, feeling Sam's eyes on her back the entire way. The room was small but clean. A bed with a faded quilt, a dresser with a cracked mirror, a window that looked out over the white expanse of the valley. Clara set her bag on the bed and stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle around her. "This was the guest room," Emma said from the doorway. "No one's used it since Mama died. She had friends who used to visit from town." The girl's voice wavered slightly. "They don't come anymore." Clara turned to face her. "Emma, I know this is hard. I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm just here to help. We don't need help. Everyone needs help sometimes." Emma's face hardened. "You don't know anything about us. You don't know what we've been through. You're just some woman who answered an advertisement because she had nowhere else to go." The words stung because they were true. "You're right," Clara said quietly. "I don't know what you've been through, but I know what it feels like to lose someone. I know what it feels like to have your whole world fall apart and have to keep going anyway. And I know what it feels like to be angry at everyone because it's easier than being sad." Emma's lips parted, but no words came out. "I'm not your enemy, Emma. I'm not trying to take anyone's place. I'm just trying to help your father keep this family together. That's all." The girl stared at her for a long moment. Then she turned and walked away without another word. Clara sank onto the edge of the bed and pressed her hands against her face. What had she gotten herself into? Supper was a silent affair. Clara had offered to cook, but Sam had already prepared a simple meal of stew and bread. They sat around the table, the five of them, with an empty chair that no one mentioned but everyone saw. Tommy had appeared just before the meal, bursting through the front door with snow in his hair and mud on his boots. He was small for 8, wiry and restless, with his father's dark hair and a defiant set to his jaw. "Where were you?" Sam asked. "Nowhere." "Tommy." "The creek. I was checking on the ice." "I told you to stay close to the house." "I was bored." Sam's knuckles whitened around his spoon, but he didn't raise his voice. "We'll talk about this later." Tommy shrugged and turned his attention to Clara. "Who's she?" "Miss Morgan. She'll be helping out." "Helping with what?" "Everything." Tommy studied her with naked curiosity. "Are you our new mama?" The table went silent. Emma made a choked sound. Rose's fingers tightened around her doll. Sam's face became stone. "No," Clara said calmly. "I'm not. I'm here to help your father and to look after you while he works. That's all." Tommy frowned. "Mrs. Patterson said you were a mail-order bride." "Tommy," Sam warned. "She did. I heard her talking to Mrs. Crane at the general store. She said Papa was desperate enough to send away for a woman, and that you were probably—" "That's enough." Sam's voice was quiet but deadly. "Apologize to Miss Morgan." "But I didn't say anything wrong. I just said what Mrs. Patterson—" "Now." Tommy's face reddened. "Sorry," he muttered. Clara took a breath. "It's all right, Tommy. People talk. It doesn't mean what they say is true." "So you're not going to marry Papa?" "I'm not here to marry anyone. I'm here to help. That's the truth." Tommy considered this. Then he shrugged and went back to his stew. Beside him, Emma hadn't touched her food. Her eyes were fixed on Clara with an expression that was impossible to read. And little Rose, just watched. Watched everything with those wide, silent eyes that seemed to see far more than anyone realized. After supper, Clara washed the dishes while Sam put the children to bed. She could hear his footsteps overhead, the low murmur of his voice, Emma's protests, Tommy's complaints about going to sleep so early. Then silence. She dried the last plate and put it away, her hands still tingling from the hot water. The fire had died down to embers. Outside, the wind howled against the windows, rattling the glass. "Thank you." She turned. Sam stood in the kitchen doorway, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. "For what?" "For how you handled Tommy. For not letting what he said bother you." Clara leaned against the counter. "He's 8. He repeats what he hears. It's not his fault." "No, it's mine. I should have known people would talk. A widower sending away for help." He laughed bitterly. "They probably think I ordered you from a catalog." "Did you—" He looked at her sharply. "I'm asking honestly, Mr. Weston. I need to know what arrangement this is." The letter was brief. Sam moved to the table and sat down heavily. He looked older in the firelight, the shadows carving deep lines into his face. "Mrs. Patterson is a family friend. She's been helping where she can, but she's got her own family, her own responsibilities. She suggested I find someone permanent. Someone who could live here, take care of the house and the children while I work." "And that's what you want, a housekeeper?" "I want my children to have a stable life. I want them to stop hurting." His voice cracked. "I want them to have what I can't give them." Clara felt something shift in her chest. "Which is?" "A woman's presence. Someone who can teach Emma the things her mother should have taught her. Someone who can make Rose feel safe enough to speak again. Someone who can show Tommy that not everyone leaves." You haven't left. I might as well have. He stared at the table, his hands flat against the wood. I'm here, but I'm not present. I don't know how to be. Every time I look at them, I see her. Every time I try to comfort them, I make it worse. Emma blames me for not saving Margaret. Tommy thinks I don't care. And Rose. His voice broke. Rose just looks at me like she's waiting for me to disappear too. Clara moved to the table and sat across from him. Mr. Weston. Sam. Sam. She said his name carefully, like testing unfamiliar ground. Grief isn't a straight line. It doesn't end just because time passes. You're doing the best you can. My best isn't good enough. Then let me help. He looked up at her, then really looked at her. And for the first time, Clara saw something other than emptiness in his eyes. She saw hope. Fragile, buried, barely alive, but there. Why? He asked. Why did you come here the truth? Clara hesitated. She could lie, could give him the polished answer she'd prepared. But something about the rawness in his face demanded honesty. Because I had nothing left, she said. My parents died when I was young. I was raised by my aunt. When she passed last spring, everything I had went to pay her debts. I was alone, penniless, with no prospects and no future. When Mrs. Patterson's letter came, it felt like a lifeline. I didn't care where I was going or what I was walking into. I just needed somewhere to be. So, we're both running from ghosts. I suppose we are. They sat in silence for a long moment, the fire crackling softly between them. The children won't make this easy, Sam said finally. Emma's determined to hate you. Tommy will test every boundary you set. And Rose. He trailed off. Rose will speak when she's ready. How do you know? Because I understand her. I didn't speak for 3 months after my mother died. I was so afraid that if I opened my mouth, all the pain would come pouring out and never stop. Clara's voice softened. But then someone showed me it was safe, that the pain wouldn't destroy me, and slowly I found my voice again. Sam stared at her like she was something he couldn't quite comprehend. Get some rest, Miss Morgan. Tomorrow will be hard. Clara. He blinked. If I'm calling you Sam, you should call me Clara. Something almost like a smile touched the corner of his mouth. It disappeared before it fully formed, but Clara had seen it. Good night, Clara. Good night, Sam. Matt. She woke to screaming. Clara bolted upright in bed, her heart pounding. The sound was coming from down the hall. High, terrified, a child's scream that cut through the darkness like a knife. She threw off the covers and ran. Rose's door was open. Inside, the little girl sat up in bed, her eyes wide and unseeing, her mouth open in a wail that seemed too big for her small body. Sam was already there, kneeling beside the bed, his hands hovering like he was afraid to touch her. Rose, sweetheart, it's okay. It's just a dream. Papa's here. But Rose didn't seem to hear him. She kept screaming, kept staring at something none of them could see. Clara moved without thinking. She pushed past Sam and climbed onto the bed, gathering the small, trembling body into her arms. Shh, she whispered, rocking gently. Shh. You're safe. I've got you. You're safe. Rose's screams faded to sobs, then to whimpers, then to silence. Her small hands clutched Clara's nightgown, holding on like she was afraid to let go. That's it, Clara murmured. That's it. I'm here. You're not alone. She looked up to find Sam watching her, his face pale in the moonlight. She has nightmares, he said hoarsely. Every night. I never know what to do. I try to hold her, but she just screams louder. Nothing I do helps. She's afraid, Clara said softly. Not of the dreams, of losing anyone else. When you hold her, she remembers that you could leave too. I would never leave her. She doesn't know that. Not yet. Sam's face crumpled. He turned away, one hand pressing against the doorframe like he needed it to stay standing. Clara continued rocking, Rose humming a tune her aunt used to sing. The little girl's breathing slowed, deepened. Her grip on Clara's nightgown loosened. "She's asleep," Clara whispered. Sam turned back and she saw the tears on his face. He didn't wipe them away, didn't hide them. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me. Just let me help." He nodded once jerkily and left the room. Clara stayed. She held Rose through the rest of the night, watching the moonlight creep across the floor, feeling the small heartbeat against her chest. This broken little family, this hollow-eyed man, these wounded children. They weren't what she'd expected. They weren't what she'd prepared for. But somewhere deep inside, in a place she'd thought was empty, Clara felt something stir. Purpose. Connection. The first faint stirring of something that might with time become love. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change forever. Morning came gray and cold. Clara woke stiff and sore, still sitting upright in Rose's bed with the little girl curled against her. She eased herself free, careful not to wake the child, and crept back to her room to dress. The house was quiet. Too quiet. She found Emma in the kitchen, standing at the stove with a wooden spoon in her hand. The girl was trying to make oatmeal, but it had burned black at the bottom of the pot. "Here," Clara said gently. "Let me help." "I don't need help." "The pot does." Emma's face reddened. She stepped aside, not meeting Clara's eyes. Clara scraped out the ruined oatmeal and started fresh. She worked in silence, feeling Emma's gaze on her back. "You stayed with her," Emma said finally. "All night?" "Yes." "Why?" Clara stirred the oatmeal slowly. "Because she needed someone. Papa tries. He sits with her every night." "I know." "She never stops screaming for him." Clara turned to face the girl. "Emma, your father loves you. All of you. More than anything in this world. But sometimes grief makes it hard to show love the way we want to. It doesn't mean the love isn't there." Emma's lower lip trembled. "He couldn't save Mama." "No one could have saved your Mama. What happened to her wasn't anyone's fault." "Then why does everyone act like it was—" The words burst out of Emma like water through a dam. Why did the doctor look at Papa like that? Why did Mrs. Crane tell everyone he should have sent for help sooner? Why does everyone whisper when we go to town? Clara set down the spoon and moved closer. Because people are afraid of death, and when they're afraid, they look for someone to blame. It makes them feel like they have control, like it couldn't happen to them. But they're wrong, Emma. Your father did everything he could. Everything. Emma's face crumpled. She looked so young, suddenly so fragile, not the angry guardian she'd been pretending to be. "I miss her so much." Clara opened her arms, and Emma fell into them, sobbing against her shoulder. "I know," Clara whispered. "I know you do." They stayed that way until the oatmeal started bubbling. Clara wiped Emma's face with a clean cloth and finished making breakfast. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't trust. But it was a start. Tommy appeared at breakfast with a scowl and a scrape on his chin. "What happened?" Clara asked. "Nothing." "Tommy." "I fell." He dropped into his chair and grabbed a biscuit. "Ain't a big deal." "Let me see." "It's fine." "Tommy." Clara kept her voice calm but firm. "Let me see." He glared at her, but something in her expression must have convinced him. He lifted his chin, revealing a shallow cut that had already started to scab. "It needs to be cleaned." "It's fine. It could get infected. Do you know what happens when wounds get infected? They hurt. They rot, and then they have to be cut off." Tommy's eyes widened. "You're lying." "I saw a man lose his hand because of an infected cut. One small cut, just like yours. He waited too long to clean it." The boy paled. "Fine. Clean it." Clara fetched water and a clean cloth. She worked gently, dabbing at the wound while Tommy squirmed and complained. "You're not a doctor," he grumbled. "No, but I've tended plenty of wounds. Hold still. It stings." "Good. That means it's working." Emma watched from across the table, her expression unreadable. Rose had come downstairs on her own, clutching her doll, and now sat in her chair with her oatmeal untouched. "Eat, Rose," Clara said softly. "You need your strength." The little girl looked at her. Then slowly, she picked up her spoon. It was small, so small, but it felt like a victory. Sam came in from the barn at mid-morning, stomping snow off his boots. He stopped short when he saw the children. Emma was helping Clara knead dough for bread. Tommy was sitting by the fire carving something with a small knife under Clara's watchful eye. And Rose was at the table drawing pictures with a piece of charcoal Clara had found in the fireplace. "What is this?" Sam asked. "Bread," Clara said. "We'll have fresh loaves for supper." "I mean," he gestured vaguely at the room. "This." "I'm not sure what you're asking." Sam looked at his children. Really looked at them. Emma's hands were covered in flour, her face more relaxed than he'd seen in months. Tommy was actually sitting still, focused on his carving. And Rose was drawing something that might have been a house with 4 people standing in front of it. "They're—" he started, then stopped. "They're children," Clara said quietly. "They need things to do. They need to feel useful. They need to know they matter." Sam stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "Papa." Emma's voice was tentative. "Miss Clara said she'd teach me to make Mama's apple cake, the one with the brown sugar on top. She said if we have apples." "We have apples," Sam said slowly. "In the cellar." Emma's face lit up. It was the first real smile Clara had seen from her. "Can we make it today? Please?" Sam looked at Clara. Something passed between them, something wordless and complicated. "That's up to Miss Clara," he said. "Of course we can," Clara said. "After lunch." Emma went back to kneading the dough, her movements lighter than before. Tommy glanced up from his carving. "Hey, Papa, Miss Clara says if I finish this, she'll show me how to make a trap for rabbits." "A trap? A humane one," Clara clarified. "So he can catch them without hurting them, for study purposes." Sam raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. He stayed in the kitchen longer than he needed to, watching them. Watching her. When he finally went back outside, Clara caught a glimpse of his face through the window. He was smiling. That evening, a knock came at the door. Sam answered it. Clara heard voices, then footsteps. Then Sam appeared in the kitchen doorway with a pinched expression. "We have visitors." 2 women swept into the room. The first was older, perhaps 60, with silver hair and a kind face. The second was younger, sharply dressed, with eyes that assessed everything they touched. "Mrs. Patterson," Sam said. "Mrs. Crane?" Clara felt her stomach tighten. Mrs. Patterson, she'd corresponded with the family friend who'd arranged her position. But Mrs. Crane was the one Tommy had mentioned, the one spreading rumors in town. "Mr. Weston," Mrs. Crane said smoothly. "We simply had to come welcome your new arrival." Her eyes swept over Clara. "My goodness, she is young, isn't she?" "Miss Morgan is more than capable," Sam said stiffly. "Oh, I'm sure." Mrs. Crane's smile didn't reach her eyes. "It's just, well, people will talk, won't they? A young woman, unmarried, living in the home of a widower. It's so very practical," Clara said calmly. Mrs. Crane's smile flickered. "Mr. Weston's children needed someone to care for them," Clara continued. "I needed employment." Mrs. Patterson kindly made the introduction. "There's nothing scandalous about it unless one is determined to create scandal where none exists." Silence fell over the room. Mrs. Patterson's lips twitched with suppressed amusement. Mrs. Crane's face had gone rigid. "Well," Mrs. Crane said finally, "I can see you're settling in nicely. We won't keep you." She turned to Sam. My niece Margaret Ann sends her regards, Mr. Weston. She's been asking after you. Sam's expression didn't change. Give her my best. Mrs. Crane swept out. Mrs. Patterson lingered, taking Clara's hands in her own. You're doing well, she said quietly. Better than I hoped. Don't let her get to you. I won't. The older woman squeezed her hands and followed Mrs. Crane out into the snow. Sam closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling heavily. I'm sorry about that. Don't be. I've dealt with women like Mrs. Crane before. She's been circling since Margaret died. Her niece is 19 and desperate for a husband. She sees me as suitable prey. Clara felt something twist in her chest. And are you suitable prey? Sam looked at her, and for a moment neither of them moved. I haven't thought about remarrying, he said slowly. Not once. Not until. He stopped. Not until what? He shook his head. It doesn't matter. Get some rest. Tomorrow I have to ride into town for supplies. You'll be alone with the children all day. I can handle it. I know you can. He walked past her close enough that she caught the scent of wood smoke and cold air, close enough that her heart stuttered in her chest. Good night, Clara. Good night, Sam. She stood in the empty kitchen for a long time after he'd gone, her hand pressed against her racing heart. This was supposed to be simple. A job, a place to stay, a way to survive. But nothing about Samuel Weston was simple, and Clara was beginning to realize that surviving might be the least of her challenges. The morning Sam left for town, the sky hung low and gray heavy with the promise of snow. Clara stood on the porch, watching the wagon disappear down the road, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. He'll be gone all day, Emma said from behind her. Maybe longer if the weather turns. Clara turned. The girl stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression guarded but less hostile than before. Then we'd better make sure everything's taken care of before he gets back. Have you fed the chickens? Not yet. I'll do it. You start breakfast. Emma's eyebrows rose. You trust me with breakfast. I trust you with a lot more than breakfast, Emma. You've been running this household longer than anyone gives you credit for. Something flickered in the girl's eyes. She nodded once and disappeared inside. Clara gathered her coat and headed for the chicken coop, her boots crunching through the fresh layer of snow. The cold bit at her cheeks, but she barely noticed. Her mind was elsewhere, replaying the look on Sam's face the night before, the way he'd stopped mid-sentence, the words he hadn't said. She scattered feed for the chickens and collected the eggs, her movements automatic. What was she doing here? What was she feeling? This was supposed to be a job, nothing more. A roof over her head, food in her belly, a purpose to fill the emptiness her aunt's death had left behind. She wasn't supposed to notice the way Sam's eyes crinkled when he almost smiled. She wasn't supposed to feel her pulse quicken when he said her name. She wasn't supposed to lie awake at night wondering what it would be like if things were different. Miss Clara. Tommy's voice cut through her thoughts. She looked up to see him running toward her, his face flushed with excitement. What is it? There's a man at the fence. He's asking for Papa. Clara's stomach tightened. What man? I don't know. He's got a fancy coat and a mean face. She set down the basket of eggs and followed Tommy around the side of the house. A man sat on horseback near the front gate, his posture rigid, his eyes scanning the property with an expression that made Clara uneasy. Can I help you? She called out. The man's gaze snapped to her. He was perhaps 40, well-dressed for the territory, with a thin mustache and eyes the color of dirty ice. I'm looking for Samuel Weston. Mr. Weston isn't here. He's gone to town. And you are? Clara Morgan. I work for the family. The man's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Ah, the new help. I've heard about you. I'm sure you have. What business do you have with Mr. Weston? That's between me and him. The man reached into his coat and produced a folded paper. "Give him this when he returns. Tell him Silas Crane came calling." Clara took the paper, her fingers brushing against his gloved hand. The touch made her skin crawl. "Crane," she repeated. "Any relation to Mrs. Crane?" "My mother." His smile widened. "She speaks highly of you, Miss Morgan. Says you're quite the firecracker." "I'm sure she does." Silas Crane tipped his hat, his eyes lingering on her in a way that made her want to scrub her skin clean. Then he wheeled his horse around and rode off without another word. Tommy appeared at her elbow. "Who is that trouble?" Clara said quietly. "Come on, let's go inside." She tucked the paper into her apron pocket and tried to push the encounter from her mind. But the man's eyes stayed with her, cold and calculating, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something dark had just arrived at their doorstep. Breakfast was quiet. Emma had made oatmeal without burning it this time, and Clara praised her effort genuinely. Tommy ate with his usual abandon, talking between bites about the rabbit traps he wanted to build. Rose sat silently pushing her food around her bowl, her doll propped against the table beside her. "Rose," Clara said gently, "you need to eat, sweetheart." The little girl looked up. Her eyes were huge and her thin face full of something Clara couldn't quite name. "Are you feeling all right?" Rose nodded slowly. Then, so quietly, Clara almost missed it, she whispered, "Bad man." Clara's heart stopped. "What did you say?" But Rose had gone silent again, her attention fixed on her doll. "She spoke," Emma breathed. "She actually spoke. Rose." Clara moved to kneel beside her chair. "Rose. Honey, can you tell me more? What bad man?" The little girl shook her head, her lower lip trembling. "It's okay. You don't have to say anything else, but I want you to know that you're safe here. No one is going to hurt you. Do you understand?" Rose's eyes met hers. Then slowly she reached out and touched Clara's face with her small hand. The gesture was so unexpected, so tender, that Clara felt tears prick at her eyes. "I'll keep you safe," Clara whispered. "I promise." The morning passed slowly. Clara kept the children busy with chores and activities, but her mind kept returning to Silas Crane, to the paper in her pocket, to Rose's whispered words. Bad man. What did she mean? Had she seen something? Heard something? Around midday, the wind picked up. Clara looked out the window and saw the sky had darkened considerably, the gray clouds now tinged with an ominous green. "Storm's coming," Emma said, appearing beside her. "A bad one by the looks of it. Your father. He'll find shelter in town if he can't make it back." But Emma's voice wavered slightly. "He always does." Clara put her hand on the girl's shoulder. "He'll be fine. Your father knows this land." "I know. It's just—" Emma stopped, swallowing hard. "Mama died in winter, during a storm. She was trying to get to the doctor when her pain started, but the snow was too deep, and by the time Papa found her— Emma, I hate storms." The girl's voice cracked. "I hate them so much." Clara pulled her into an embrace, holding her tight as the first flakes of snow began to fall outside. "We're going to be all right," she said. "All of us. I won't let anything happen to you." Emma clung to her, and for the first time Clara felt the girl's walls truly begin to crumble. The storm hit hard. Within an hour, the world outside had disappeared into a wall of white. The wind howled against the windows, rattling the glass, finding every crack and gap in the walls. Clara stoked the fire until it roared, piling blankets on the children, trying to keep the cold at bay. "Where's Tommy?" Emma asked suddenly. Clara looked around. The boy had been there just a moment ago, sitting by the fire with his carving knife. "Tommy," she called. No answer. "Tommy." Emma's face went pale. "He wouldn't. He knows not to go out in a storm." But Clara was already moving, checking the kitchen, the stairs, the bedrooms. Empty. All empty. "His coat's gone," Emma said, her voice rising with panic. "His boots, too. Clara, he went outside." Clara's blood turned to ice. She grabbed her own coat and ran for the door. "Stay here with Rose," she ordered. "Keep the fire going. Don't open the door for anyone except me or your father." "But, Emma, listen to me. I need you to be brave. Can you do that?" The girl nodded, her face white but determined. Clara plunged out into the storm. The cold hit her like a physical blow. She couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction, the snow swirling so thick it was like walking through a white curtain. She called Tommy's name, but the wind tore the words from her mouth and scattered them into nothing. Think, she told herself. Think. Where would he go, the creek? He'd mentioned checking on the ice. He'd been warned to stay away, which meant it was exactly where an 8-year-old boy would go. She fought her way through the drifts, following the fence line by feel when she couldn't see it. The cold seeped through her coat, her gloves, her boots. Her face went numb, her fingers ached. She found him by the sound of his crying. He was huddled under a fallen tree near the creek bank, his small body shaking with sobs and shivers. When he saw her, his face crumpled with relief. "Miss Clara." She grabbed him, pulling him against her. "What were you thinking? You could have died out here." I'm sorry. I just wanted to check the traps. I thought I could make it back before the storm got bad." "You foolish, foolish boy." But she held him tight, her own tears freezing on her cheeks. "Can you walk?" "I think so." "Then hold on to me. Don't let go for anything." They struggled back through the snow, Clara half carrying Tommy when his legs gave out. The house appeared through the white like a beacon, its windows glowing with firelight. She'd never seen anything so beautiful. Emma threw open the door as they stumbled onto the porch. Clara pushed Tommy inside and collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. "Get him warm," she managed. "Blankets? Hot water?" Emma was already moving, stripping off Tommy's wet coat, wrapping him in quilts, pushing him toward the fire. Rose stood watching her doll clutched to her chest, her eyes huge and frightened. Clara sat on the floor, unable to move her body, shaking uncontrollably. "Miss Clara." Emma's voice seemed far away. "Miss Clara, are you all right?" She tried to answer, but the cold had stolen her voice. The room tilted, darkened. The last thing she heard before unconsciousness took her was Rose's voice, clear and strong for the first time since she'd arrived. "Don't die. Please, don't die." She woke to warmth. Someone had wrapped her in blankets and positioned her near the fire. Her clothes had been changed. She was wearing a flannel nightgown she didn't recognize, and her hair had been unbound, spreading across the pillow beneath her head. "She's awake." Tommy's face appeared above her, pale and worried. Behind him, Emma hovered, her eyes red-rimmed. "How long?" Clara croaked. "A few hours. The storm's still going. We couldn't wake you, and we didn't know what to do, and you did everything right." Clara reached up to touch the boy's cheek. "You got me warm. You took care of your sisters. You did exactly what you should have done." Tommy's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. If I hadn't gone out—" "You made a mistake. People make mistakes. What matters is what we do after." "I thought you were going to die." His voice broke. "Like Mama." Clara pulled him down into her arms, holding him as he cried. Emma knelt beside them, her hand on her brother's back, and Rose climbed into Clara's lap, pressing her small body against her chest. They stayed that way as the storm raged outside, the four of them huddled together by the fire, holding on to each other like survivors of a shipwreck. Clara didn't know how long they'd been there when the door burst open. Sam stood in the doorway, covered in snow, his face wild with fear. He took in the scene, his children clustered around Clara. The blankets, the firelight, and something in his expression shattered. "Papa!" Tommy scrambled up and threw himself at his father. "Papa, I'm sorry. I went to the creek and Miss Clara came to find me, and she almost froze, and—" Sam grabbed his son and held him so tight the boy squeaked. Then he was on his knees beside Clara, his hands cupping her face, his eyes searching hers. "Are you all right?" Emma sent Jake to find me in town. He said there'd been an accident. I thought—" His voice cracked. "I thought I'd lost you." Clara's heart stuttered. "I'm fine. Just cold." "You're not fine. You could have died. But I didn't." "Clara." He said her name like a prayer, like a plea. Why did you risk your life for him?" "Because he's yours. Because he matters. Because that's what you do for the people you—" She stopped, the words catching in her throat. Sam's hands tightened on her face. "For the people you— what?" She couldn't answer, couldn't breathe, couldn't look away from the intensity in his eyes. "Papa?" Emma's voice broke the moment. "Is Miss Clara going to be all right?" Sam pulled back slowly, his hands falling to his sides. "She's going to be fine. She just needs rest." He stood and began shedding his wet coat, his movements jerky and controlled. Clara watched him, her heart pounding her mind, reeling from what had almost been said. The storm blew itself out by morning. Clara woke to pale sunlight streaming through the windows and the sound of children laughing. She sat up slowly, her body aching but no longer cold, and found the bed she was in was not her own. She was in Sam's room. The realization hit her like a splash of cold water. She was in his bed wearing a nightgown that must have belonged to his wife, surrounded by his things. The door opened. Sam appeared with a cup of coffee, stopping short when he saw her awake. "You're up." "Why am I in here?" "Your room was too cold. The window seal leaks during storms. I thought you'd be more comfortable here." "Where did you sleep?" "The sofa." Clara pulled the blankets up to her chin, suddenly very aware of how little she was wearing. "You should have put me on the sofa. You almost died saving my son. You get the bed." He set the coffee on the bedside table and stood there awkwardly, his hands shoved into his pockets. "About last night," he started. "You don't have to say anything." "Yes, I do." He took a breath. "When Jake told me what happened when I thought you might be, I've never ridden that fast in my life. Not even when Margaret was—" He stopped, his jaw tight. "Sam, I can't lose anyone else. I can't. And the thought of you out there in that storm, dying because of my son's foolishness. It wasn't foolishness. It was grief. Tommy's been trying to get your attention for months, and he doesn't know how to do it except by making trouble. He went to the creek because he knew you'd told him not to. He wanted you to notice him." Sam's face went pale. "What?" "He thinks you don't care about him. He thinks you blame him for his mother's death." "That's insane. Why would I blame him?" "Because she went into labor early trying to bring him medicine when he was sick. Because in his 8-year-old mind that makes it his fault." Sam staggered back like she'd struck him. He sank into the chair by the window, his head falling into his hands. "I didn't know. God help me, I didn't know." "He needs to hear it from you. He needs to hear that it wasn't his fault. That you love him. That you see him. I see all of them, every day. I look at them and I see her, and it tears me apart, and I don't know how to—" His voice broke. "I don't know how to be what they need." Clara set aside the blankets and moved to kneel in front of him. She took his hands in hers, feeling them tremble. "You're already what they need. You just have to let them see it. Stop hiding your grief, Sam. Share it with them. They lost their mother, but they're also losing their father piece by piece because you won't let them in." He looked at her, his eyes wet, his defenses crumbling. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "See right through me. No one's done that since Margaret. No one's even tried." Clara's heart ached. Maybe because no one else was looking. They stayed that way for a long moment, hands clasped, eyes locked. Then Sam leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. "You terrify me," he whispered. "Why?" "Because I'm starting to feel things I swore I'd never feel again. Because when I thought you might be gone, I couldn't breathe. Because you've been here less than 2 weeks, and already I can't imagine this house without you. Clara closed her eyes. Sam, I know it's too soon. I know you came here for a job, not for this. I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know. Know what? That you matter. Not just to the children. To me. She pulled back, meeting his gaze. The truth of his words was written all over his face, raw and unguarded. You matter to me too, she said softly. More than I expected. More than I planned. Something like hope flickered in his eyes. Then stay. Not as hired help, just stay. I'm not going anywhere. He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for years. A knock came at the door. Emma's voice filtered through. Papa, Miss Clara, breakfast is ready and Tommy says he's dying of hunger. Sam almost smiled. We'll be down in a minute. Clara stood, suddenly aware again of her state of undress. I should get changed. Your clothes are in your room. I had Emma bring them back after the fire dried them. She moved toward the door, then stopped. Sam, the paper, in my apron pocket. A man came yesterday before the storm. Silas Crane. He left it for you. Sam's expression darkened. Silas was here. You know him. Unfortunately, his mother wants me to marry her niece. Silas wants my land. Your land. There's silver in these hills. The Crane Mining Company has been buying up property all over the valley. I've refused to sell 3 times now. They're getting impatient. Clara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. He looked at this place like he already owned it. He thinks he will eventually. He's wrong. Sam stood, his jaw set, his shoulders squared. The broken man she'd met her first day was gone. In his place stood someone harder, fiercer. Get dressed, he said. We have a lot to do today. She nodded and slipped out the door. Breakfast was almost normal. The children chattered about the storm, about Clara's rescue of Tommy, about the way Rose had spoken. Sam listened with an attention he hadn't shown before, asking questions, making eye contact, actually present in a way Clara hadn't seen. When the meal was over, he asked Tommy to help him in the barn. The boy's face lit up like sunrise. Really, you want my help? I always want your help. I should have asked sooner. Father and son walked out together, and Clara watched them go with a warmth spreading through her chest. He's different, Emma said quietly. He's trying. Because of you. Clara shook her head. Because of all of us. Because this family is worth fighting for. Emma was silent for a moment. Then she said, Mama would have liked you. It was the highest compliment the girl could have given. The day passed quietly. Clara washed dishes, mended clothes, helped Rose practice her letters. The little girl had spoken twice more small words, whispered hesitantly, but each one felt like a miracle. Late in the afternoon, a wagon appeared on the road. Clara watched from the window as it drew closer, her stomach tightening when she recognized the driver. Mrs. Crane sat rigid on the seat, her face pinched with cold and disapproval. Beside her sat a young woman Clara hadn't seen before, pretty in a pale, delicate way, with blonde ringlets and a nervous smile. Emma, Clara called. Go find your father. The front door opened without a knock. Miss Morgan, Mrs. Crane said, sweeping inside like she owned the place. How fortunate to find you home. This is my niece, Margaret Ann. She's come to pay her respects to Mr. Weston. Clara kept her expression neutral. Mr. Weston is in the barn. I'll let him know you're here. Don't trouble yourself. Margaret Ann can find him herself. She knows the way. The young woman blushed deeply but didn't protest. She was already moving toward the back door when Sam appeared, Tommy at his side. Mrs. Crane, Sam said, his voice flat. I wasn't expecting visitors. Mr. Weston. Mrs. Crane's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. We couldn't let another day pass without seeing how you fared in that dreadful storm, and Margaret Ann was so worried about you. I'm fine, as you can see. Yes, I can see. Mrs. Crane's eyes slid to Clara. I can see quite a lot, actually. The implication hung in the air like poison. Margaret Ann stepped forward, her eyes downcast. "Mr. Weston, I brought some of my mother's preserves. I know how you always enjoyed them." She held out a basket, her hands trembling slightly. Clara felt a surge of unexpected pity. The girl was a pawn, nothing more, pushed into a game she clearly didn't want to play. Sam took the basket with a curt nod. "Thank you, Miss Margaret. That was kind." "Perhaps Miss Morgan could put these in the kitchen," Mrs. Crane suggested, "while Margaret Ann and I visit with you properly." Clara took the basket without a word, but as she turned, Sam's voice stopped her. "Clara can stay." Mrs. Crane's eyes narrowed. "I beg your pardon. Miss Morgan is part of this household. There's nothing you need to say that she can't hear." The silence that followed was deafening. Mrs. Crane drew herself up to her full height. "Mr. Weston, I've known you since you were a boy. I knew your mother, God rest her soul, and I'm telling you as someone who cares about your reputation that having an unmarried woman living under your roof is causing talk, unpleasant talk. Then people should find something better to do with their time. This isn't a joke. Your children's futures are at stake. Emma will be of marrying age in a few years. Do you think any respectable family will consider her with this kind of scandal attached to her name?" Sam's jaw tightened. "There is no scandal. Miss Morgan was hired to care for my children. That's all." "Is it?" Mrs. Crane's smile was poison-sweet. "Because that's not what my son tells me. He came to visit yesterday, did he not? He said Miss Morgan answered the door looking quite comfortable." Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I answered the door because Mr. Weston was in town. There was nothing inappropriate about it. You're very young, Miss Morgan. Perhaps you don't understand how these things appear to others." "I understand perfectly. And I understand that appearances often matter more to people who have something to hide than to those who don't." Mrs. Crane's face went rigid. Sam stepped forward, positioning himself between Clara and the older woman. "I think you should leave." "Mr. Weston, my children are happy. My household is running smoothly for the first time in 2 years. Miss Morgan has done nothing wrong, and I won't have her reputation attacked in my own home." "I'm only trying to help." "No, you're not. You're trying to manipulate me into marrying your niece because you want access to my land. I've said no 3 times, and the answer hasn't changed." Margaret Ann let out a small sound of distress. Her face had gone crimson with humiliation. "That's a vile accusation," Mrs. Crane hissed. "It's the truth, and everyone in this room knows it. Now please leave. And tell your son that if he comes on my property again, I'll consider it trespassing." Mrs. Crane's composure finally cracked. Fury twisted her features, making her look older, uglier. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "Both of you." She grabbed Margaret Ann's arm and swept out of the house, slamming the door behind her. Silence fell. Tommy looked between his father and Clara, wide-eyed. "Papa, what just happened?" "Nothing you need to worry about. Go find your sisters." The boy hesitated, then ran off. Sam turned to Clara. His hands were shaking. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have handled that better." "You handled it perfectly. I just made an enemy of the most powerful family in the valley." "You already had one. Now at least it's out in the open." He laughed bitterly. "You're taking this remarkably well." "I've been called worse things by better people. Mrs. Crane doesn't frighten me." "She should." Sam moved to the window, staring out at the retreating wagon. Her husband was a judge before he died. Her son controls half the businesses in town. They've ruined people for less than what I just said. Clara came to stand beside him. "Then we'll be careful. But I won't let them bully you into a marriage you don't want." He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Why do you care?" "You know why." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Sam reached out his hand, hovering near her face, not quite touching. "Clara, Papa!" Emma's voice echoed from upstairs. Rose is asking for you. She wants to show you her drawings. The moment shattered. Sam dropped his hand, his expression shifting back to neutral. Coming, he called. He headed for the stairs, then paused. Thank you, he said quietly, for everything. Then he was gone, leaving Clara alone with her racing heart and the growing certainty that she was falling in love with a man she had no right to want. The week that followed Mrs. Crane's visit passed in uneasy quiet. Clara went about her duties with one eye always on the road, waiting for whatever retaliation might come. Sam worked longer hours than before, rising before dawn and returning after dark, his face drawn with exhaustion and worry he refused to name. The children felt the tension. Emma grew quieter, helping Clara without being asked, watching her father with anxious eyes. Tommy stayed close to the house, his adventurous spirit dampened by something he didn't understand. And Rose, who had begun speaking in halting phrases, retreated back into silence. On the 7th day, Jake rode up to the house just after noon. Clara met him on the porch. His face was grim. Where's Sam? The north pasture. What's wrong? The Cranes are making their move. They've called in a loan my brother didn't know he had. Clara's blood went cold. What loan? Margaret took one out years ago before the children were born. She needed money for seed and supplies, and the bank wouldn't lend to a woman. So she went to Crane. He's held that paper for 8 years waiting for the right moment to use it. Can he do that call in a debt that old? He can do whatever he wants. He owns the bank now. If Sam can't pay in 30 days, he loses the ranch. Clara gripped the porch rail, her knuckles white. How much? $300. It might as well have been $3,000. She knew Sam didn't have that kind of money. No rancher did not in the middle of winter, not after 2 years of grief and neglect. I'll get Sam, she said. She found him mending fence in the north pasture, his hands raw from the cold, his breath fogging in the frigid air. When she told him what Jake had said, he went still. $300. Yes. He drove the fence post into the ground with savage force. Then another. Then another. Sam. I knew this was coming. I knew Silas wouldn't let it go. I just thought I had more time. There has to be something we can do. Someone who could help. Who? Everyone in this valley is either afraid of the Cranes or in their pocket. The bank won't give me a loan because they own the bank. The cattle aren't worth enough to sell. He laughed bitterly. I could sell my soul, and it still wouldn't be enough. Clara moved closer, putting her hand on his arm. What about the silver? You said there's silver in these hills. On my land, yes. But I'd need money to mine it equipment. I don't have men I can't pay. And even if I could, it would take months to turn a profit. I don't have months. I have 30 days. Then we fight. He looked at her, something flickering in his eyes. How? I don't know yet. But I'm not going to stand by and watch them take everything you've built. Everything your wife helped you build. This is your children's home. This is their future. We don't just give that up. Sam stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached out and cupped her face in his rough hands. You really believe that, don't you? I believe in you. I believe in this family. And I believe that people like the Cranes only win when good people stop fighting. He leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. What did I do to deserve you? You didn't do anything. I just showed up, remember? He almost smiled. Best thing that ever happened to me. They stood that way for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. Then Sam pulled back, his expression hardening with resolve. All right, let's figure out how to save this ranch. That night, they spread every document Sam had across the kitchen table. Deed papers, loan agreements, receipts, everything Margaret had carefully filed away before her death. Jake came back after supper to help, and the 4 of them, Sam. Jake, Clara, and Emma, who refused to go to bed, pored over the papers by lamplight. Here. Emma's voice cut through the quiet. She held up a yellowed document, her face pale in the flickering light. This is the loan agreement. Look at the date. Clara took it, scanning the cramped handwriting. Her heart stuttered. Sam, look at this. He came to stand behind her, reading over her shoulder. What am I looking at? The date. The loan was taken out on March 15, 1870. But this signature, this isn't Margaret's handwriting. Sam went rigid. What? I've seen her letters. The ones she wrote to your mother. Her handwriting was small and neat. This is different. Look at the way the M is formed, the slant of the letters. Jake grabbed the document, his eyes widening. She's right. Margaret always signed her name with a little flourish at the end. This doesn't have it. Are you saying the loan is forged? Sam's voice was barely a whisper. I'm saying it's possible. If we could prove it, it would destroy the Cranes. Jake's face lit up with fierce hope. Forgery is a criminal offense. Silas could go to prison. But we'd need proof, Clara said. More than just our word against theirs. We'd need someone who could verify the handwriting, someone with authority. The judge in Millbrook, Sam said slowly. He's not connected to the Cranes. If we could get this document to him, show him the discrepancy. Silas would never let that happen. The moment he finds out what we're doing, he'll come for us. Then we don't let him find out. Sam's jaw set with determination. I'll leave tomorrow before dawn. I can be in Millbrook by nightfall if I push hard. And if the Cranes come while you're gone, Clara asked quietly. You'll be here, you and Jake. Sam, I can't. Yes, you can. He took her hands in his grip firm and warm. You've done more for this family in 3 weeks than I've done in 2 years. I trust you with my children. I trust you with my home. I trust you with everything I have. Clara's throat tightened. What if something goes wrong? Then we'll deal with it, together. But I have to try, Clara. If there's even a chance this document is forged, I have to take it. She nodded slowly. Then go. We'll hold things together here. He raised her hands to his lips and kissed her knuckles. It was a simple gesture, almost chaste, but it felt like a promise. I'll be back as soon as I can. Sam left before sunrise. Clara stood on the porch watching until the wagon disappeared into the gray morning light, her heart heavy with fear and something else she didn't want to name. Then she turned and went inside to face whatever was coming. The first day passed without incident. Clara kept the children busy, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy. She taught Emma how to make bread pudding, helped Tommy with his reading, sat with Rose, while the little girl drew pictures of horses and houses, and a woman with brown hair standing beside a tall man. Who's that? Clara asked gently, pointing to the figures. Rose looked up at her with those huge, knowing eyes. Family, she whispered. Clara had to blink back tears. The second day, Silas Crane came. Clara saw him coming from the window, his black coat stark against the snow, 2 men riding behind him. Her stomach dropped. Emma, take your brother and sister upstairs. Don't come down until I tell you. But now, Emma, please. The girl's face was white with fear, but she obeyed, herding Tommy and Rose up the stairs. Clara opened the door before Silas could knock. Mr. Crane. Miss Morgan. He smiled, and the expression made her skin crawl. I was hoping to find Mr. Weston at home. He's not here. No. How unfortunate. His eyes swept past her into the house. I'll wait. That's not a good idea. It wasn't a request. He pushed past her before she could stop him, his men following. They spread through the front room like a stain, touching things, looking at things, making the space feel violated. Mr. Crane, you have no right to be here. I have every right. This property belongs to my family, or it will in 30 days. I'm simply inspecting my investment. The debt hasn't been called yet. This is still Sam Weston's home. Sam is it. Silas's smile sharpened. How familiar. Tell me, Miss Morgan, just how close have you and Mr. Weston become? Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks, but kept her voice steady. That's none of your concern. Everything about this ranch is my concern, including its occupants. He moved closer, and Clara forced herself not to step back. You're a long way from Boston, young pretty alone. It would be such a shame if something happened to you out here in the wilderness. Is that a threat? It's an observation. The frontier is a dangerous place. Accidents happen. People disappear. He reached out and touched a strand of her hair. It would be wise for you to consider your options, Miss Morgan. There's still time to leave this situation gracefully. Clara slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. Silas's expression flickered, the mask of civility cracking to reveal something ugly beneath. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was opening that door. Get out. Or what you'll call for help. There's no one here but you and 3 children. No one to witness anything. No one to contradict whatever story I choose to tell. Fear coiled in Clara's chest, but she refused to let it show. Your mother knows you're here. Half the town probably knows. If something happens to me, people will ask questions. People ask a lot of questions. Doesn't mean they get answers. Get out of my house. The voice came from behind her. Clara whirled to see Emma standing at the bottom of the stairs, her father's rifle in her hands. Emma, no. I said get out. The girl's voice shook, but the rifle didn't. I know how to use this. Papa taught me. Silas's eyes narrowed. Put that down before you hurt yourself, child. I ain't a child, and I ain't gonna ask again. The tension in the room was suffocating. Clara could see Silas calculating, weighing his options, deciding whether an 11-year-old girl was really a threat. Then the front door burst open. Jake stood in the doorway, his own rifle raised, his face dark with fury. You heard the lady. Get out. Silas's men went for their guns, but Jake was faster. Don't even think about it. I've got friends surrounding this house. You make one wrong move and you won't live to regret it. It was a bluff. Clara knew it was a bluff, but Silas didn't. This isn't over, he said quietly. Not by a long shot. He gestured to his men and they filed out, their boots heavy on the wooden floor. Silas paused at the door, looking back at Clara. You've chosen your side, Miss Morgan. I hope you don't live to regret it. Then he was gone. Clara's knees gave out. She sank onto the sofa, her whole body shaking. Emma ran to her, the rifle clattering to the floor, and threw her arms around her. I'm sorry. I know you said to stay upstairs, but I couldn't let him hurt you. I couldn't. You were so brave. Clara held her tight, tears streaming down her face. So incredibly brave. Your father is going to be so proud of you. Jake knelt beside them, his face still grim. We need to get word to Sam. This has gone beyond property disputes. Silas is dangerous. I know. I'll ride to Millbrook tonight. Sam needs to know what happened. Clara nodded, wiping her face. Be careful. Always am. He stood, then paused. You did good, Clara. Most women would have fallen apart. I'm not most women. He almost smiled. No, you sure ain't. After Jake left, Clara gathered the children in the main room. She built up the fire until it roared and made hot cocoa with the last of the sugar. Then she sat with them, all 4 of them, huddled together on the worn sofa, and told them stories until the fear faded from their eyes. Miss Clara, Tommy's voice was small, are the bad men going to come back? I don't know, sweetheart, but if they do, we'll be ready. I was scared, Emma admitted quietly. When I picked up that rifle, my hands were shaking so bad, I thought I'd drop it. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what needs to be done, even when you are scared. And you did that, Emma. You protected your family. Mama would have done the same thing. Clara stroked the girl's hair. Yes, she would have. Rose climbed into Clara's lap, her doll clutched against her chest. She looked up with those solemn eyes and said very clearly, You stay. Clara's heart cracked open. Yes, sweetheart, I'm staying. Forever. She thought about the answer. About Sam, about this ranch, about the life she'd somehow stumbled into. About all the reasons she should be afraid, and all the reasons she wasn't. "Forever," she said. Sam returned 3 days later. Clara heard the wagon before she saw it, and she was on the porch before he'd even pulled to a stop. He jumped down and crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides, pulling her into his arms. "Jake told me everything. Are you all right? Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine. We're all fine." He pulled back his hands, cupping her face, his eyes searching hers. "I should never have left. If something had happened to you, but it didn't. Emma saved us. Emma and Jake. Emma." His voice cracked. "My Emma. Your Emma held a rifle on Silas Crane and told him to get out of her house. She's the bravest person I know." Sam's face crumpled. He pressed his forehead against Clara's, his shoulders shaking. "I've been such a fool. All this time I've been so wrapped up in my own grief that I missed what was right in front of me. My children, you, everything that matters. You're not a fool. You're a man who lost his wife and didn't know how to keep living. There's no shame in that." "There is, if it means putting the people I love in danger." Clara's breath caught. "Sam." He pulled back, meeting her eyes. "I love you, Clara. I know it's too soon. I know we barely know each other, but I love you, and I'm done pretending I don't." The words hung in the cold air between them, fragile and fierce. "I love you too," she whispered. He kissed her then, right there on the porch in the winter sunlight, with the snow gleaming white around them, and the wind carrying the sound of children's laughter from inside the house. It was nothing like the tentative, almost moments they'd shared before. It was a declaration, a claiming a promise. When they finally broke apart, Clara was breathless. "What happened in Millbrook?" Sam's expression shifted, a fierce satisfaction replacing the tenderness. "The judge agreed to look at the document. He's sending an investigator to examine the original loan papers and compare the signatures. If the forgery is proven, the Cranes lose everything. Everything, including their freedom." Clara felt hope bloom in her chest for the first time in days. "How long?" "A week, maybe 2. The investigator needs time to do his work. And until then, we hold on. We protect what's ours." He took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. Together. They walked inside to find the children waiting, their faces anxious and hopeful. Sam knelt down and opened his arms, and all 3 of them rushed into his embrace. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm sorry I've been so far away. But I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere." "Promise," Tommy demanded. "Promise." Emma pulled back, her expression serious. "Papa, Miss Clara said we're a family now, all of us. Is that true?" Sam looked up at Clara, something profound passing between them. "Yes," he said. "That's true." Rose tugged at his sleeve. When he looked down, she said the longest sentence she'd spoken since her mother died. "I want Miss Clara to be our mama." The room went silent. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Sam stood slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. "What do you say, Clara Morgan? Will you marry me?" She thought about Boston, about her aunt's cold house and the life she'd left behind, about the letter that had brought her here, the wagon ride through the snow, the first moment she'd seen this broken man and his wounded children. She thought about all the ways her heart had opened since then, all the ways she'd healed by helping them heal. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." The children erupted in cheers. Tommy whooped and ran in circles. Emma threw her arms around Clara's waist, and Rose, little silent Rose, laughed out loud for the first time since her mother died. Sam pulled Clara close and kissed her again, softer this time, a gentle seal on the promise they'd made. Outside, the winter sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the snow-covered valley. Inside, a family found its way back to each other. The days following Sam's proposal passed in a strange blend of joy and tension. Clara moved through her duties with a lightness she hadn't felt in years, but beneath that happiness lay the constant awareness that the Cranes hadn't finished with them yet. Every sound on the road made her heart jump. Every rider in the distance made her fingers itch for the rifle that now stayed loaded by the door. Sam noticed. Of course he did. "You're not sleeping," he said one morning, finding her in the kitchen before dawn. "Neither are you." He came to stand behind her, his hands settling on her shoulders. "The investigator arrives today. By this time tomorrow we'll know. And if the forgery can't be proven, then we'll find another way." He turned her to face him, his eyes steady. "I'm not losing this ranch. I'm not losing you. Whatever happens, we face it together." Clara leaned into his chest, drawing strength from his heartbeat. "I keep thinking about what Silas said, about accidents happening, about people disappearing. He was trying to scare you." He succeeded. Sam's arms tightened around her. "I won't let him touch you. Any of you. I'd die first." "Don't say that." "It's the truth." She pulled back, meeting his gaze. "I didn't come all this way to watch you sacrifice yourself. If it comes to a fight, we fight together. Promise me." He hesitated, then nodded. "I promise." The investigator arrived at noon. His name was Harold Finch, a small man with spectacles and ink-stained fingers, who looked more suited to a library than the rough frontier. But his eyes were sharp, and when he examined the loan document, his expression grew increasingly grim. "This is troubling," he murmured, holding the paper up to the light. "Very troubling indeed." "Can you prove it's forged?" Sam asked. "I need to compare it to other samples of your wife's handwriting. Letters, receipts, anything with her signature." Clara brought forward the box of correspondence she'd found in Sam's study. Margaret's letters to her mother-in-law, signed birthday cards for the children, a recipe she'd copied out in her careful hand. Finch spread them across the table, his magnifying glass moving from one to another. "The forgery is crude," he said finally. "Look here at the angle of the ascenders. Your wife wrote with a consistent right-leaning slant. The signature on this loan document slants left. Either she signed while holding the pen in her other hand, or someone else wrote this. Is that enough to prove forgery? It's enough to raise serious questions. Combined with the circumstances, the timing of the loan being called the Crane's interest in your property, I believe we have a case." Sam exhaled slowly. "What happens now?" "I'll return to Millbrook and file my report with Judge Harrison. He'll issue a summons for Silas Crane to appear in court. If the forgery is proven, the loan will be declared void, and Mr. Crane will face criminal charges." "How long?" "A week, perhaps less. The judge understands the urgency." Clara felt hope surge in her chest, but it was tempered by fear. A week was a long time. A lot could happen in a week. That night, after the children were in bed, Clara and Sam sat together by the fire. The house was quiet. The only sounds the crackle of flames and the wind against the windows. "Do you think he'll go quietly?" Clara asked. "Silas? No." Sam's jaw tightened. "He'll fight. Men like him always do." "Then we need to be ready." "We are ready. Jake's been watching the road. The neighbors know what's happening. Half the valley has been waiting for someone to stand up to the Cranes." "And the other half?" "Too afraid to pick a side. That'll change once the court rules against them." Clara stared into the fire, watching the flames dance. "Sam, there's something I haven't told you." He turned to look at her. "What is it?" "When Silas came here, when he threatened me, I saw something in his eyes, something beyond greed or anger. He enjoyed it. The fear, the power. He's not just trying to take your land. He's trying to destroy you. Personally." Sam was quiet for a long moment. "His father and mine had a falling out years ago before I was born. Some dispute over water rights that turned ugly. Old man Crane swore he'd ruin my family, and he spent the rest of his life trying. When he died, Silas inherited more than just his money. He inherited his hatred." "That's madness." "That's the frontier. Grudges don't die out here. They get passed down like heirlooms." Clara reached for his hand. Then we break the cycle. We end this one way or another, and we don't let it poison the next generation." Sam raised her hand to his lips. "Have I told you today that I love you? Not in the last few hours. I love you, Clara Morgan, more than I ever thought I could love anyone again." She leaned in and kissed him softly. "I love you too." 3 days later, the summons was served. Jake brought the news himself, riding up to the house with a grin splitting his face. Silas nearly had a fit when the marshal handed him the papers, started screaming about corruption and conspiracy. They had to hold him back from attacking the judge's deputy. "He'll be even angrier now," Sam said grimly. "Let him be angry. There's nothing he can do. The court date is set for Friday. All you have to do is show up and tell the truth." But that night, Clara woke to the smell of smoke. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding, and saw the orange glow through the window. For a terrible moment she was frozen, her mind refusing to accept what her eyes were telling her. Then she screamed, "Sam, fire!" He was out of bed in an instant, running for the door. Clara grabbed her robe and followed her bare feet slapping against the cold floor. The children emerged from their rooms, eyes wide with terror. "Emma, get your brother and sister outside. Now!" The barn was fully engulfed. Flames leaped into the night sky, sending sparks showering down like hellish snow. The horses were screaming a sound that would haunt Clara's nightmares for years to come. Sam ran for the barn doors. Clara caught his arm. "You can't go in there." "The horses." "Sam, you'll die." He shook her off and plunged into the inferno. Clara stood frozen, watching the flames devour everything, her heart stopping with every second that passed. Behind her, the children sobbed. Emma held Rose tight against her chest. Tommy stood rigid, his face pale as death. Then Sam emerged, leading 2 terrified horses by their halters. His shirt was singed, his face blackened with soot, but he was alive. Clara ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. "Don't ever do that again." "Had to save them. They're all we have left." The barn collapsed with a roar, sending a pillar of flame into the sky. They stood watching it burn, all 5 of them huddled together in the cold winter night. "Silas," Sam said quietly. "This was Silas." "Can you prove it?" "Doesn't matter. He's declared war. And war is something I understand." By morning, half the valley had gathered at the Weston Ranch. They came on horseback and in wagons, men and women Clara had never met, drawn by the smoke and the rumors that had spread like wildfire. They brought food and blankets and offers of help. They brought hammers and nails and lumber to rebuild. But more than that, they brought anger. "The Cranes have gone too far this time," a grizzled rancher named Henry declared. "We've all seen what they do to people who stand up to them. Well, I'm done being afraid." "So am I," said a woman Clara recognized from the general store. "My husband lost his business because he refused to sell to them. We've been too scared to speak up. No more." One by one they stepped forward. Neighbors who'd kept their distance. Townspeople who'd looked the other way. All of them coming together to stand against the family that had terrorized them for years. Sam stood on the porch surveying the crowd with emotion he couldn't quite hide. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," Henry replied. "Just tell us what you need." "I need witnesses. For the court hearing on Friday. People willing to testify about what the Cranes have done. Not just to me, but to everyone they've hurt." The crowd murmured. Some looked afraid. Others looked determined. "I'll testify," the woman from the general store said. "I'll tell them everything." "So will I," said another voice. And another, and another. By the time the sun was fully up, Sam had a list of 24 witnesses willing to speak against the Cranes. Clara watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. This was what community meant. This was what standing together looked like. All those months of isolation, of thinking she had nowhere to belong, and now here she was, surrounded by people who would fight for her family. Sam caught her eye across the crowd and smiled a real smile, the kind she'd rarely seen from him. "We're going to win," he mouthed. She nodded, not trusting her voice. They were going to win. The night before the hearing, Clara found Emma sitting alone on the porch, staring up at the stars. "You should be asleep." "Couldn't sleep." The girl glanced at her, then back at the sky. "Miss Clara, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Mama would be angry that Papa's marrying you?" Clara sat down beside her, considering the question carefully. "I think your Mama would want your father to be happy. I think she'd want all of you to be happy. And I think she'd be glad to know there's someone here to take care of you. I used to be so angry when you first came. I thought you were trying to replace her." "I know. But you weren't. You're not. You're something new. Something different." Clara reached out and took the girl's hand. "I loved someone once before I came here. Not a husband, but my aunt. She raised me after my parents died. When she passed, I thought I'd never love anyone again. I thought my heart was too broken." "What changed?" "Your father, your brother and sister, you." Clara squeezed her hand. "Love isn't finite, Emma. It doesn't run out. Loving you and your family doesn't take anything away from what I felt for my aunt. And your father loving me doesn't take anything away from what he felt for your mother." Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I'm glad you came." "So am I. And I'm glad you're going to be our mama. Our second mama." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "That means more to me than you'll ever know." Emma leaned against her, and they sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Friday arrived cold and clear. The courthouse in Millbrook was packed to bursting. People stood in the aisles and lined the walls, all of them waiting to see the Cranes finally brought to justice. Clara sat in the front row with the children, her hands clasped tight in her lap. Sam sat at a table near the front, his expression calm, but his eyes blazing with quiet fire. Beside him sat the witnesses who'd agreed to testify, Henry and the woman from the general store, and all the others who'd found their courage. On the other side of the room, Silas Crane sat alone. His mother hadn't come. His lawyers flanked him like vultures, but they looked nervous, shuffling papers and avoiding eye contact with the crowd. Judge Harrison, a silver-haired man with a reputation for fairness, called the court to order. "We're here to examine allegations of forgery against Silas Crane, specifically regarding a loan document purportedly signed by Margaret Weston 8 years ago. Mr. Finch, please present your findings." The investigator took the stand, walking the court through his analysis with meticulous precision. He showed the discrepancies in the handwriting, the inconsistencies in the ink, the subtle errors that proved beyond doubt the signature was not Margaret's. "In my professional opinion," Finch concluded, "this document is a forgery. Mrs. Weston did not sign it." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Silas's face had gone white. "Mr. Crane," the judge said, "do you have anything to say in response to these allegations?" Silas stood slowly, his composure cracking. "This is a conspiracy. A vendetta orchestrated by Samuel Weston and his new whore from Boston." The courtroom erupted. Clara felt the word like a slap, but she kept her chin high, refusing to show weakness. "Order," Judge Harrison banged his gavel. "Mr. Crane, you will control yourself or be removed from this courtroom. This is my town. My family built this valley. You can't—" "I can and I will. Sit down." Silas sat, but his eyes found Clara's across the room. The hatred in them was pure and undiluted. The witnesses testified one by one. Henry spoke about the water rights dispute that had ruined his father. The woman from the general store told of how her husband's business had been destroyed. Others came forward with stories of intimidation, manipulation, and fraud, stretching back decades. By the end, even the lawyers on Silas's side looked defeated. Judge Harrison leaned back in his chair, his expression grave. "The evidence before this court is overwhelming. The loan document in question is a forgery. Mr. Crane, you are hereby charged with fraud, forgery, and attempted theft of property. The loan is declared null and void. Mr. Weston's ranch is free and clear." The courtroom exploded in cheers. Clara leaped to her feet, tears streaming down her face. The children rushed to their father, nearly knocking him over with their embraces. But Silas wasn't finished. He lunged across the room, his face twisted with rage, his hands reaching for Sam's throat. "I'll kill you. I'll burn everything you love to the ground." The marshal tackled him before he could reach his target. Clara watched as they dragged him away, still screaming, still threatening his madness, finally laid bare for all to see. Sam caught her eye across the chaos and mouthed 3 words. "We did it." Yes, Clara thought. We did. That evening the Weston Ranch was filled with celebration. People came from all over the valley bringing food and drink and music. The sound of laughter echoed across the snow-covered fields. Children ran and played while their parents danced and toasted to the future. Clara stood on the porch watching it all with a heart so full she thought it might burst. Sam came to stand beside her, his arm sliding around her waist. Quite a party. Quite a day. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "I want to get married tomorrow." Clara looked at him in surprise. "Tomorrow? Why wait? We've already waited too long. Life's too short for waiting." She thought about it. About propriety and planning and all the things she'd been taught to care about. Then she thought about how close she'd come to losing him. How close they'd all come to losing everything. "Tomorrow," she agreed. "Tomorrow sounds perfect." Sam kissed her long and deep while the celebration swirled around them. "I have something for you," he said when they finally broke apart. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, simple but beautiful. A gold band with a single pearl set in the center. "It was my mother's. She left it for my wife." He paused. "My wives, both of them." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Sam, I know it's not fancy. I know you deserve diamonds and it's perfect." She held out her hand and he slipped the ring onto her finger. "It's absolutely perfect." He pulled her close, and they stood together on the porch, watching the stars come out over the valley they'd fought so hard to save. Inside the house, Clara could hear the children laughing. Emma was teaching Rose a new song. Tommy was telling anyone who would listen about the time his new mama stood down Silas Crane. His new mama. Clara smiled, the words settling into her heart like they'd always belonged there. "Ready to go back in?" Sam asked. "In a minute. I just want to remember this. All of it. We'll have plenty more moments like this. A lifetime of them." "I know." She leaned against him, breathing in the scent of wood smoke and winter air. "But this is the first one. The one where everything changed." Sam kissed the top of her head. "I love you, Clara Morgan." "Clara Weston," she corrected. "Almost." "Clara Weston," he repeated, and the name sounded like a promise. "My wife." "Your wife?" she agreed. "Forever." They stood together in the cold winter night, 2 people who'd found each other against all odds, surrounded by the family they'd built and the community they'd united. And in that moment, everything was exactly as it should be. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and cold, the kind of winter day that made the world look like it had been scrubbed clean and set out fresh. Clara woke before sunrise, her heart racing with a mixture of joy and disbelief that this day had finally arrived. She lay still for a moment, listening to the quiet sounds of the house, the creak of settling wood, the distant crow of a rooster, the soft murmur of voices from downstairs where Emma was already awake preparing for the ceremony. Today she would become Clara Weston. Today she would become a wife and a mother in the eyes of God and the law. Today everything she'd ever dreamed of would become real. A knock came at her door. "Miss Clara?" Emma's voice was hushed but excited. "Are you awake?" "Come in, sweetheart." The girl slipped inside, already dressed in her best Sunday dress, her dark hair braided and pinned up in a style Clara had taught her. In her hands she carried a bundle wrapped in tissue paper. I have something for you. From all of us. Clara sat up, her curiosity piqued. What is it? Emma sat on the edge of the bed and carefully unwrapped the tissue. Inside was a dress simple, but beautiful, made of cream-colored wool with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. We made it. Emma said, her eyes bright with pride. Me and Mrs. Patterson and some of the ladies from town. We've been working on it for a week ever since Papa told us about the wedding. Clara's throat tightened. She reached out to touch the fabric, marveling at the tiny, perfect stitches. Emma, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just wear it. Please. Clara pulled the girl into a fierce hug. It's the most beautiful dress I've ever seen. There's more. Emma pulled back, suddenly shy. Tommy made you a hair comb from some wood he's been carving. It's not very good, but he worked really hard on it. And Rose. She hesitated. Rose has something she wants to give you herself. She asked me not to tell. Rose asked you. Emma nodded, a smile breaking across her face. She's been talking more and more. Not a lot, but more than before. Papa says it's because of you. Because you made her feel safe again. Clara's eyes filled with tears. You all made me feel safe too. I came here with nothing, and now I have everything. That's what family does, Emma said simply. That's what you taught us. The ceremony was held in the front room of the ranch house, with the fireplace blazing and every chair borrowed from neighbors for miles around. Reverend Miller had ridden out from town, his Bible tucked under his arm and a warm smile on his weathered face. Clara stood at the bottom of the stairs, her hands trembling, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. The dress fit perfectly, hugging her waist and flowing down to brush the floor. Tommy's wooden comb held her hair back from her face, and around her neck hung the pearl necklace that Mrs. Patterson had pressed into her hands that morning. Something borrowed, the older woman had said. Every bride needs something borrowed. Now Clara waited, watching, as the guests settled into their seats, as Jake took his place beside his brother at the front of the room, as Emma guided Tommy and Rose to their spots near the fireplace. Then the crowd parted, and she saw him. Sam stood waiting for her, dressed in a dark suit she'd never seen before, his hair combed back, his beard neatly trimmed. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. They were no longer hollow, no longer empty. They shone with something she recognized because she felt it too. Love. Pure and unguarded and fierce. She walked toward him, her steps steady despite the trembling in her legs. The guests blurred around her. The only thing she could see was him. When she reached his side, he took her hands in his. You look beautiful, he whispered. So do you. He almost laughed. I look like a man who can't believe his luck. Reverend Miller cleared his throat. Shall we begin? The ceremony was simple, as they'd wanted. The Reverend spoke of love and commitment, of the bond between two souls who'd found each other against all odds. He spoke of family, of community, of the strength that came from standing together. Then it was time for the vows. Sam went first, his voice steady but thick with emotion. Clara, I came to you broken. I'd lost my way, lost myself in grief so deep I couldn't see anything else. I'd forgotten how to be a father. I'd forgotten how to live. And then you showed up, this stranger from Boston, with nothing but a bag and a stubborn streak a mile wide, and you reminded me what mattered. You saved my children. You saved my ranch. You saved me. He paused, swallowing hard. I can't promise you riches or an easy life. But I can promise you my heart, my devotion, and every day I have left on this earth. I love you, Clara, now and forever. Clara blinked back tears, her voice shaking as she spoke. Sam, I came here because I had nowhere else to go. I was lost and alone, and so afraid of what the future held. I expected to find a job, a roof over my head, maybe some peace. I never expected to find a home. I never expected to find a family. I never expected to find you. She squeezed his hands. You showed me that it's never too late to start over. That love can grow in the most unexpected places. That family isn't just blood, it's choice. I choose you, Sam Weston. I choose your children. I choose this life. And I will keep choosing it every single day for as long as I live. Reverend Miller smiled. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Sam, you may kiss your bride. Sam pulled her close and kissed her soft and sweet and full of promise. The room erupted in applause. Someone whistled. Someone else shouted congratulations. But Clara barely heard any of it. All she could feel was Sam's arms around her, Sam's lips on hers, Sam's heartbeat against her chest. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying. "Hello, Mrs. Weston," he said. "Hello, husband." The celebration lasted well into the evening. Tables had been set up throughout the house and spilling onto the porch, laden with food that neighbors had brought. Music filled the air, fiddles and guitars and voices raised in song. People danced and laughed and toasted the newlyweds until Clara's cheeks ached from smiling. Sometime after sunset, she found herself alone on the porch, catching her breath, watching the stars emerge one by one. The cold air felt good against her flushed skin. The noise from inside was muffled, distant, like a warm blanket of sound. "Mama." Clara turned. Rose stood in the doorway, her doll clutched against her chest as always, but her eyes were different. Brighter. More alive. "Yes, sweetheart." The little girl walked toward her slowly, carefully, like she was approaching something precious and fragile. "I have something for you." She held out her hand. In her small palm lay a piece of ribbon, faded and frayed, clearly old and well-loved. "What's this?" "It was my first mama's. She wore it in her hair on her wedding day. Papa told me. I've been keeping it safe." Rose's voice was soft but steady, the longest Clara had heard her speak. "I want you to have it now, because you're my mama too." Clara knelt down, her vision blurring with tears. She took the ribbon carefully, reverently, understanding the magnitude of what this child was offering. "Rose, are you sure this is so precious?" "That's why I want you to have it. You're precious too." Clara pulled her into a fierce embrace, holding this small, brave girl who had been through so much and somehow found her way back to trust and love. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll treasure it forever." Rose pulled back and looked at her with those old soul eyes. "Mama Clara, yes. I'm glad you came. I'm glad you stayed." "So am I, sweetheart. So am I." Sam found them like that a few minutes later, Clara still holding Rose, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. "Everything all right?" Clara looked up at him, her heart overflowing. "Everything is perfect." He helped them both to their feet, and they stood together, the three of them, looking out at the snow-covered valley that was now their home. "Emma and Tommy are looking for you," Sam said to Rose. "They want to teach you a new dance." Rose nodded and scampered inside, pausing at the door to look back with a smile that transformed her whole face. Sam put his arm around Clara's waist. "What did she give you?" Clara showed him the ribbon. "Margaret's, from her wedding day." Sam's breath caught. For a moment he couldn't speak. When he did, his voice was rough with emotion. "She never gave that to anyone. Not even Emma. She said she was saving it for something special. She was saving it for me." "Yeah." He pulled her closer. "I think maybe she was." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the night deepen around them. "No regrets?" Sam asked finally. "Not one. It won't be easy. We've still got a barn to rebuild, a ranch to run, 3 children to raise. The cranes may be finished, but there'll be other challenges, other storms." "I know. And you're still not scared?" Clara thought about the question, about everything she'd survived to get here, about everything that still lay ahead. "I'm terrified," she admitted. But I've learned that fear isn't the opposite of courage. It's the fuel for it. And I've got plenty of courage when I'm standing next to you." Sam kissed her temple. "How did I get so lucky?" "You weren't lucky. You were brave enough to ask for help, brave enough to let someone in. That's not luck, Sam. That's strength. I love you, Clara Weston. I love you too, Sam Weston, forever and always." The weeks that followed the wedding were filled with hard work and unexpected joy. The community rallied to help rebuild the barn. Men came from all over the valley bringing lumber and nails and expertise, working from dawn until dusk, while their wives kept everyone fed with hot meals and strong coffee. What would have taken Sam months to accomplish alone was finished in less than 3 weeks. Clara worked alongside them, refusing to be relegated to the kitchen. She hammered nails and carried boards and painted walls until her arms ached and her back screamed. And every night she fell into bed beside her husband, exhausted but happier than she'd ever been. The children thrived. Emma blossomed into a young woman before Clara's eyes, confident and capable, her grief transforming into gentle remembrance rather than sharp pain. She talked about her mother, now sharing memories with Clara, rather than hoarding them, building a bridge between the woman who'd given her life and the woman who was helping her grow. Tommy settled down, his wild energy channeled into productive work. He helped his father with the cattle, learned to repair fences, took pride in responsibilities that made him feel valued and seen. The angry, attention-seeking boy who'd run off into a blizzard had become a young man in training, still mischievous, but no longer destructive. And Rose, sweet little Rose, spoke more every day. Full sentences at first, then paragraphs, then entire conversations. Her voice was soft and musical, and hearing it still made Clara's heart swell with gratitude. The nightmares faded, replaced by peaceful sleep and happy dreams. Spring came early that year, melting the snow and revealing the first hints of green beneath the white. Clara stood on the porch one morning, watching the sun rise over the valley, feeling the warmth on her face for the first time in months. Sam came to stand beside her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. "Penny, for your thoughts." She took the cup he offered, breathing in the steam. "I was thinking about how much has changed. 4 months ago I was on a stagecoach, terrified and alone with nothing but a letter and a bag to my name. Now look at me. I'm looking." His eyes swept over her with obvious appreciation. "And I like what I see." She swatted his arm, but she was smiling. "I'm serious. I never imagined any of this. A husband who loves me, children who call me mama, a community that accepts me, a home. You built this, you know, not me. You came here and you fought for it, fought for us when you had every reason to walk away. I couldn't walk away. You were all too stubborn to let me." He laughed, a real laugh, the kind she'd come to treasure. "We Westons are a stubborn bunch. You'll fit right in." "I already do." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the valley wake up around them. "I have news," Sam said after a while. "Good news or bad news?" "Good, I think. I heard from the marshal yesterday. Silas Crane's trial is set for next month. They're charging him with fraud, forgery, arson, and attempted assault. He won't see the outside of a prison for 20 years, if ever." Clara felt something loosen in her chest, a knot of tension she hadn't realized she was still carrying. And his mother moved back east, sold everything and left without a word. The Crane Mining Company is being dissolved. The land they swindled from people is being returned. So it's really over. It's really over. She leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. What happens now? Now we live, we raise our children, we work our land, we grow old together. He turned her to face him, his hands cupping her cheeks. We build the life we were always meant to have. That sounds like a lot of work. It does. Think you're up for it? Clara smiled, thinking of everything she'd survived, everything she'd overcome, everything she'd gained. I think I'm up for anything. That Sunday, the family attended church together for the first time. Clara walked into the small wooden building with Sam's hand warm in hers, the children following behind. People turned to look, whispers rippling through the congregation, but the whispers were different now. Not malicious, not judgmental, curious, welcoming. Reverend Miller smiled when he saw them. The Weston family. Welcome. Family. The word wrapped around Clara like a warm blanket. They took their seats in a pew near the front, the children settling between them. Rose reached for Clara's hand on one side, while Tommy leaned against Sam on the other. Emma sat straight and tall, a hymnal already open in her lap. The service was simple and moving. Reverend Miller spoke about redemption, about second chances, about the grace that came from opening your heart to love even when you were afraid. We are all of us broken, he said. Every single one. But it's in our brokenness that we find our strength. It's in our wounds that we discover our capacity for healing. And it's in our willingness to love again, to trust again, to hope again, that we find our way back to grace. Clara felt tears slip down her cheeks. Sam squeezed her hand. After the service, people approached them, not to gossip or pry, but to offer congratulations, to welcome Clara to the community, to ask about the children, to make plans for spring planting and summer socials. Mrs. Patterson embraced her warmly. "I knew you were the one," she whispered. "The moment I read your letter, I knew." "Thank you," Clara said, "for everything. Don't thank me. You did this yourself. All I did was open the door." Walking home that afternoon, the sun warm on their faces, the children running ahead through the meadow, Clara felt a peace settle over her that she'd never known before. This was what happiness felt like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of love. Not perfection, but acceptance. Not the ending of a journey, but the beginning of a new one. Sam caught her looking at him and smiled. "What?" "Nothing. Just grateful." "For what?" "For you. For them." She gestured at the children, at the ranch in the distance, at the wide open sky. "For all of it. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. They brought me here." He stopped walking and pulled her into his arms, right there in the middle of the path, with the children whooping and the birds singing and the whole valley spread out around them. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making you happy," he said. "I hope you know that." "You already do, every single day." He kissed her long and slow, and Clara let herself sink into it, into him, into this life she'd never expected and couldn't imagine being without. That night, after the children were in bed, Clara sat at the kitchen table writing a letter. Sam found her there, pen in hand, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Who are you writing to?" "Mrs. Patterson's sister. She knows a woman in Philadelphia, a young widow with no prospects. She's been looking for a way out." "A way out to where?" "Here. The Hendricks Ranch, 2 valleys over. Old Mr. Hendricks lost his wife last year. He's got 4 children and a farm he can't manage alone." Sam's eyebrows rose. "You're matchmaking." "I'm opening doors. The way Mrs. Patterson opened one for me." Clara set down her pen. "Someone gave me a chance when I had nothing. Someone believed I could make a life here. I want to do the same for someone else." Sam sat down across from her, his expression soft with love and admiration. "You're remarkable, you know that." "I'm just a woman who got lucky." "No, you're a woman who made her own luck. Who took a terrible situation and turned it into something beautiful. Who came here a stranger and became the heart of this family." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I spent 2 years feeling like I was drowning, and then you showed up and taught me how to breathe again." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Sam, I mean it. Every word. You saved us, Clara. All of us. And I will never stop being grateful for the day you stepped off that stagecoach." She got up and moved around the table, settling into his lap, her arms around his neck. "We saved each other," she said. "That's what families do." He held her close, his face buried in her hair. his heart beating steady and strong against hers. "I love you, Mrs. Weston. I love you too, Mr. Weston. Forever. Forever." Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had watched over this valley for centuries, that would go on watching long after they were gone. The ranch stood solid and warm against the darkness, a beacon of light in the wilderness. Inside, a family that had been broken found its way to wholeness. A man who had forgotten how to love remembered. Children who had lost their mother found another. And a woman who had arrived with nothing discovered that she had everything she'd ever needed. Clara Morgan had come to Cedar Creek with a letter and a bag and a heart full of fear. Clara Weston would stay for the rest of her life, her heart full of love, surrounded by the family she'd helped to heal and the community she'd helped to unite. Some stories end with a sunset, others end with a beginning. This one ended with both, and with the unshakable truth that love, real love, the kind worth fighting for, was always worth the risk. The Weston family had learned that lesson the hard way, and they would never ever forget it.